Clerk Segrist, could please call the roll?
Trustee Anthony.
Present.
Trustee Foster.
Good evening.
Trustee Graham Hudek.
Evening.
Record reflect the clerk Segrist is in attendance. Treasurer Slavens.
Good evening.
Snyderman.
I am here.
Supervisor Williams.
Good evening. Call for a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Support.
In favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. We have one set of minutes to be approved for May 8, 2018. Call for a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
So moved.
Support.
Those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now would be time for citizens' non-agenda items. If there's something, is anybody that would like to speak this evening for an item that's not on the agenda, now would be the time. Mr. Miller?
George Miller. I'd like to ask the question here. What's being done with some of the potholes, particularly on intersection of Canton Center Road and Getty's? That seems to be quite bad. Many people have complained about that here in the last 3 or 4 weeks. Sheldon Road from Cherry Hill to Ford Road, and Lily Road from Palmer Road to Ford Road. Those it hasn't even been touched. I drive that road every day, and it hasn't been touched in the last 2 weeks. Now, by the county, I brought up the issue that some time ago, years ago, in the 80s, or up to about 1990, Mrs. Slavin addressed it this evening to somewhat. I'd like to know Canton floated bonds to pave Sheldon Road from Michigan Avenue to Cherry Hill. That's what I've been told by past treasurers. Some of your civil engineers from Palmer Road to Cherry Hill Road. Some of the civil engineers said Canton floated bonds. And I'd like the record why we're floating bonds for county roads. The county should be taking care of that and floating their own bonds or a bond issue with the county. I'd like to know why this township is doing that. That's what I've been told in the past. I'd like to see where the bonds were floated and if Canton floated the bonds for improving those roads, county roads in this township. Since you're a township, the county surely takes care of those roads. I'd like to address the issue on the summit. When the power failure is there, I addressed it. If there's a big crisis, power failure, tornado, flood, or somewhat, I'd like to know why you can't put some of the residents up over at the summit. I've experienced, you have to leave there at 10 o'clock. Some of these people have nowhere to go. Their relation is in Texas or California, New York. They don't have any friends or relatives here to go to. And that summit is paid for by the taxpayers here, some of these folks. And I'd like to know why, when there's a super emergency, it can't be open. I want to reply to that. I want to know what you can do for a protocol and what the results are on it. Another issue this evening, had some people to bust a tire that I know, and the shift commander this evening, he was on, and guess what? It didn't happen this evening, but if you have a form, a county form, to go against the county for restitution for the tire and rim, you have to have a police report. But your friendly police department doesn't give the protocol or won't come out unless there's thousands of dollars worth of damage. Now, I have people that work for the auto companies and design some of those wheels and tires. Some of them run $1,000 on those big trucks just for the wheel, per wheel. Now, I want to know why your police department, and I've brought up many issues about things on it, why they can't come out if they're called. So I'll put a freedom of information, and I want an answer to it. Thank you.
All your questions are noted. Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to make public comment? Is there anybody else who would like to make public comment? Okay, seeing none, Treasurer Slavens, could we have a motion to pay the bills?
Mr. Supervisor, I make a motion that we pay the bills.
Second.
In favor of paying the bills again this month, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Very good. Now, if Clerk Segrist could read the consent calendar as a single motion.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that the board adopt the consent calendar as presented. Item C1, consider second reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 30, Article 2 of the Canton Code of Ordinances entitled False Alarm to revise Sections 30-35 and 30-37 to bring it into compliance with the current state law. Item number C2, consider second reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 38 of the Canton Code of Ordinances entitled Fire Prevention and Protection to adopt the 2015 International Fire Code version. And item C3, consider second reading of an ordinance to amend Chapter 46, Article 7, Division 1 of the Canton Code of Ordinances entitled Offenses and Miscellaneous Provisions to revise Section 46-505 and 46-506.
Support from Treasurer Slavens. Those in favor of the motion as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G1, consider authorizing an agreement with Nankin Transit as provider of Canton Mobility Transportation Program.
Supervisor, I move to authorize a 3-year agreement with an auto renewal option to the Nankin Transit Commission. The amount of the contract with Nankin Transit Commission is not to exceed the annual amount of $446,027 in year 1, or an annual increase above 3% in year 2 or 3 of the contract.
Support.
In summary, in February 2018, Huron Valley Ambulance, HVA, notified Leisure Services that they would be activating the 180-day notice clause in their contract with Canton, thus ending the agreement on August 10th, 2018, which provides transportation to Canton seniors and residents with disability. Once notified, Leisure Services began exploring available alternative options. As a result, Nankin Transit Commission is being recommended based on numerous factors. After careful consideration, Leisure Services is confident in Nankin's Transit's ability to provide seamless transition for hundreds of Canton residents who utilize this very valuable program. And a little bigger picture in terms of background is HVA basically did not want to conform to a federal requirement that would have impacted us obtaining future grants. And at the time, we didn't realize what a huge favor they were doing us. That being said, Greg, can you please kind of give us a little 50,000-foot view of where we're headed here?
Yeah, just a quick overview of the program. I think we all kind of have an overview of what the program is. There are a few changes to the service that will happen for those that participate in the program. This service area map that you see on the screen here is a comparison of the old service area and the new service area. The shaded area at the top of that map will no longer be serviced to the, actually, I better put up a different one that'll make it a little bit easier to show here. Maybe I won't. Okay, maybe I won't be showing you that. Yes, okay. This is the map that I wanted to show you so that I can kind of highlight the area. So our current service area is outlined by this blue. It includes Canton as well as this entire border here and up and across. 80% of our rides are given within the Canton area. The other 20% are up in this northern and eastern portion of the map. The new service area will include all of Canton as well as Westland, Garden City, Inkster, and Wayne. So the top portion of the map will be no longer serviced. The eastern portion, the farther eastern portion will be picked up within this new service. However, St. Mary's at the top of the map will continue to be serviced. So if anybody has an appointments, doctor's visits, those sorts of things up at St. Mary's, they still will be able to go up to that area. Slight note, Nankin will go 1 mile outside of the boundaries that you see out there. So just if you're just a little bit outside those boundaries, Nankin Transit will be able to service those areas. The other major note as far as the service areas is the Ann Arbor hospitals of U of M and St. Mary's will no longer be serviced. Pardon? St. Joseph. Those will no longer be serviced. They should not technically have been serviced previously. The smart service area ends at the border of Wayne County, so we can't really be going into Washtenaw County. We've been having an average of 3 to 6 trips per month out of our 22,000 trips annually. Only probably less than 100 are trips to Washtenaw County. And we have come up with some other resources that we'll be able to provide our riders to be able to access those areas, some volunteer programs where they'll be able to try and get some rides to the Washtenaw County hospitals as well. Some additional notes on a comparison between the services briefly. I guess that doesn't really show up yet too great there, but it is a bit cheaper per year. The first year we do have some annual capital costs to upgrade the IT and cameras on the buses. But after that, it'll be about $60,000 a year, $70,000 a year cheaper with Nankin Transit than what we're currently paying. They will comply with the federal requirements that HVA is unable to comply with their system. They already comply with those systems. They will allow riders of 55 and up onto the system, whereas currently we have 62 and up. Basically what they want to do is their current policies and practices that they have for Wayne, Westland, Inkster, and Garden City, they'll apply to Canton Township instead of having 2 different sets of rules for any of the riders. So they would allow anyone from 55 and up. Hours are virtually the same. One big factor that is a great benefit to us is SMART will do the maintenance on the vehicles. So any maintenance for these buses, the labor is covered by SMART, and all Nankin will have to pay for is the parts. Currently, we're paying parts and labor. And the SMART system also will guarantee the buses. So if we have a bus that has a major problem that needs to be taken out of service for several days or longer, SMART would provide a substitute bus for us to use in the meantime, which we currently don't have that ability to do within our current system. They will also they currently have 10 buses in their fleet to serve the 4 communities. They'll roll in the 5 buses that Canton has now, and they'll use all 15 buses to service the entire area, which will increase our ridership. They'll actually be able to have a higher capacity right now where we're turning down riders every month for some of the shopping trips that we have. This system will allow us to increase our ridership because they have 15 buses now in their fleet. They'll probably have 12 or 13 on the road at a given time based on maintenance and that sort of thing. Right now they operate with about 8, so it'll be able to have a little flexibility there. This is just some of the capital needs that they have that's covered in that initial capital outlay that we would have to do. And then with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. We do have Jim Ridenauer from Nankin Transit here this evening, also to answer any questions that you may have.
Where is the Nankin headquarters?
Westland.
So it's great to see that the hours have extended
30 minutes, but are we looking maybe to do further? I know a lot of people with disabilities had said that they couldn't even come to our meetings.
We've had those discussions, and what we would do in that, initially, what we want to do is just get into Nankin Transit, operate under their current system, and kind of get a feel, work out any kinks there. And then once we're in the system with Nankin, each community has 2 seats on the board. So then at that board level within the Nankin Transit Board, we could bring that up and talk about extended hours. We did have some initial discussions with that. But what they also, the same with the ages, they would want to institute any hours changes across the board with all the communities, not just within Canton. So that is an option that we can pursue in the future with kind of doing a split shift with their drivers. So a driver would start later in the day potentially and work into the evening, but that's something we would have to work out with the other communities on the Nankin system as well.
Good that they're going to connect to the SMART. Where are we going to connect to the SMART? On Michigan?
Any smart bus stops, or any of the bus stops in the other communities are available. We could drop people at those bus stops, and that's also an option for the Washtenaw County hospitals as well. AATA does do pickups and drop-offs at Myers at Canton Center and Ford Road, so we could drop guests or any of our participants there. They could use the AATA system to get to the Washtenaw County hospitals and anywhere around Ann Arbor and then back, and then we would pick them up at that bus stop and get them back home in the evening.
It's good that we dropped the age from 62 to 55. Are we considering, are we stopping at 55 because of volume? And if we went even lower, there'd be more need?
Yes. Yeah, so 55 and then any individuals with disabilities.
Hey, now the 387, that wasn't budgeted, right? That would be for year 2. You'd said we needed an additional 387.
No, that's not an additional, that's actually less than we have budgeted. We have 470 budgeted. So the $387,000 is a lower cost than we're currently spending right now.
That
on
covers the
program.
cameras, or that would?
The cameras are in year 1 this year, so the initial year will have $401,000 as well as $45,000 in capital for a total of $446,000 in year 1. Year 2, we won't have the capital and some of the operating costs that they have to get the program up and running. So year 2, that would drop down to $387,000. That's not $387,000 more than we're paying right now. Currently, our contract with HVA is for $467,000.
Okay, so that's budgeted and it would be less, we'd be spending less.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Sounds like a great alternative. Thanks for getting that done, and thanks to our new partner. This is a little bit off topic, but Anne Marie brought it up before, and she reminded me in what she was saying. And don't need an answer now, but are we looking at still any solutions for those who walk along Michigan Avenue to reach into the SMART system to get downtown? Is that still something we're brainstorming about? Or we kind of brought it up at our goals session, I think.
Yes, yeah, we're still looking into that. If they qualify into the program, obviously they could be picked up, but
Right.
if they don't qualify into the program, that would be another avenue we would have to explore for that.
Interesting just to have a discussion to see what that would cost, even if it was just a few times a day that we run buses down
Right.
Michigan Avenue to get into the SMART system for anyone, just because we know that's a growing need in our community. I don't know how big it is, though. So that'd be interesting to know, too.
Certainly
Money.
have those discussions with Nankin.
No other comments? Those in favor of the motion as presented, state aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you. Item G2. Consider approval of cemetery property special land uses for mini warehouse facility and building material sales establishment.
Supervisor, I move that the board adopt the following resolution. Whereas the project sponsor has requested special land use approvals for mini warehouse and building material sales facilities on property located on the south side of Michigan Avenue between Sheldon and Morton Taylor Roads, and whereas the Planning Commission reviewed the special land use criteria and conceptual site plan for both facilities and voted 8-0 to recommend approval of the request as it meets all applicable criteria, and whereas I'm having an interesting technical issue. The Zoning Board of Appeals granted the applicable variances needed for the building material sales establishment conditioned upon provision of a full-height masonry screen wall in the outdoor sales are in locations where materials are stored on shelving and/or pallets. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton, Michigan does hereby approve the request for a mini warehouse facility in the LI Light Industrial District and a building material sales facility in the C3 Regional Commercial District on the parcel numbers listed, as they met all applicable special land use and design criteria for the respective uses, subject to approvals of the variances by the Zoning Board of Appeals and any conditions the ZBA placed on said approvals, subject to any and all applicable state and local development regulations.
Support.
In summary, the subject properties include the old Garland Place Motel, which has been demolished, and the existing building, which has previously housed Livonia Magnetics. The intent and the use of the east and south portion of the property for a mini warehouse, which is a special land use to the LI Light Industrial. Tractor Supply Company, which is considered a special land use for the building material sales establishment, and in the C3 Regional Commercial Zone. The site will share a common driveway for Michigan Avenue and utilize common storm water system at the south end of the site. Interconnections between the sites have been provided and accommodate public safety access between the sites. The Tractor Supply Company will utilize a portion of the previous Livonia Magnetics building with an addition to front and back of the building. The mini warehouse facility will be new construction located to the east and south of Tractor Supply. The two new businesses will result in redevelopment of the overall site, which will be a huge improvement to the existing conditions along this portion of south side of Michigan Avenue. Are there any board questions? Anne Marie?
Oh, on the Planning Commission, thank you, we talked about, I was surprised to find out that our occupancy rate for storage in Canton is 90%. And we did talk about that, how it is screened, so it won't be visible from the road. And we also discussed hazardous materials too, that it is against the law to place hazardous materials in there also. So some people were on the Planning Commission were concerned about that. But all in all, there weren't a lot of questions.
So this is a combining of two previously different business sites into one?
Yeah,
So
correct.
that Livonia Magnetics is gone, they're not in that building anymore.
That's correct. That's the existing red building that's here at the west side of the site. North is kind of to the left here. So this building will be refurbished and converted into the Tractor Supply Company with a large outdoor material storage enclosure on the east side of the site.
No additional questions? Those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G3, consider approval of minor plan development for the towns at Cherry Hill condominiums.
Mr. Supervisor, I move that the board adopt the following resolution. Whereas the project sponsor has requested approval of a minor plan development for the towns at Cherry Hill condominiums on property located on the south side of the Cherry Hill Road, west of Denton Road, and whereas the Planning Commission reviewed the minor plan development agreement and conceptual development plan for both facilities and voted 8-0 to recommend approval of the request as it meets all applicable criteria for a planned development and the general guidelines for the Cherry Hill Village overlay. Now therefore be it resolved, the Board of Trustees of the Charter Township of Canton, Michigan does hereby approve the minor plan development for the towns at Cherry Hill condominiums on the parcel numbers listed as proposed, subject to any and all applicable state and local development regulations.
Support.
Good. In summary, the proposed minor plan development consists of 93 attached residential townhomes and 16 buildings on 8.37 acres. The plans are consistent with Cherry Hill Village Overlay District and provide a transition from the commercial and office uses on the north side of Cherry Hill to the single-family site condominiums to be constructed by MI Homes within the corners, located adjacent to and south of the proposed development. Are there any board questions or comments? I see we have Mr. Fingerroot is in the audience with us this evening, and a PowerPoint, some slides were handed out. John?
Just, do you know what the price range will be for these homes, and when construction be started, completed?
I'm hoping to have them, the starting prices in the high twos, perhaps in the low threes. I think that'll be about where the transactions will be. I would say 275 to 3 1/4.
They're all two-story?
They're 3-story, and then as they back up to the corners, the end units are going to be ranch style, so they'll be about the same massing. When we first brought this up in the rezoning request a few months ago, some neighbors came out and they were concerned about the height of them. We met with the neighbors, we showed them the product, and there were some neighbors that came, but nobody had objective to the way we handled that. We put a big buffer with trees, and then we lowered the units that were backing up to the corners. Oh, and to answer your other question, we're hoping to do the development in the fourth quarter of this year, the third, fourth quarter of this year, and start construction hopefully in the fourth quarter.
So the pictures that I'm looking at, this must be one of the end units, a single story, is that?
Okay, so in the front, that's obviously, that would be along Cherry Hill Road. That would be the fronts of the units.
Yep.
They're 2.5 stories in the front and 3 in the back. The grade drops off for the garages. The garages are all hidden in the back through sort of like an alleyway. And then at the end, there's a slide, I think it's the third from the end, which shows the lower unit. Yes, right there, the top picture there.
That's what that's the end unit there?
Yes.
It doesn't go all the way to the corner. What's planned for the corner?
That 1 acre actually isn't our property. I believe the owner there, I don't want to speak for him, but in conversations I had, I think he would like commercial there, and I don't know the viability of that today, but I think he's trying to sell it for some type of commercial use.
Currently zoned commercial. Yes, Tim? Is that an accurate statement, or?
It was planned for commercial. It's just part of the overall Cherry Hill Village District overlay. So it could be commercial, it could be residential.
And lastly, Director Foss, so to the west of these, the open land to the west that I see, is that still planned for commercial, or maybe dual?
It's commercial. In fact, they should be starting construction, I think, pretty soon. That was the Czar Commercial Plaza, if you recall, when that went through the township board for approval, so.
I see, okay. And is there a white fence behind that separating? Is that a white fence I remember?
There
behind
is.
there? Is that going to stay? Is that part of?
Yeah, that's the
other?
plan.
Okay.
Yes. And there's going to be landscape in between that white fence and our new buildings.
Go ahead, Anne Marie.
A process question. So we had I don't know if there are members here from the residents that wanted to speak on this, because they couldn't in public comment because it's on the agenda for process.
If there's anybody who'd like to make public comment on this item, now would be the appropriate time to do that. Is there
Sorry, I
anybody
thought
that
I
would
saw-
like to make public comment on this item? No? Okay. You're
Well,
welcome.
during the planning commission meeting, we had a room full. And a lot of people were concerned about, they wanted to have commercial there still, and we explained to them how that had been tried at Cherry Hill Village for quite a long time.
Like commercial?
Do you
Yes.
know why? Was it because they just want more options? We haven't filled the storefronts we already
Right.
have.
That
so-
was it, and that's what we explained to them.
Okay.
Tried for a long time. But one big thing that came out of this as an aside, other than questions of the, the veneer and the colors, that we were gonna look at that also,
Yes.
is the traffic study. They did do a traffic study on Cherry Hill and Denton there, and a lot of the traffic going northbound and southbound through that light were failures, graded at D, E, and F. Now, it did show that putting a resident there rather than commercial lowered it. It wouldn't be as bad if it were commercial. However, still, at this point, the accurate traffic counts are showing that they were pretty bad, and Jeff was going to forward that to Wayne County for that light. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's already been done. In fact, this proposed development will decrease traffic by, I think it was a little bit over 2,000 trips. So this was substantially better traffic impact-wise than had this been developed as commercial. The existing traffic problem that exists there is primarily being driven by traffic from two charter schools, one north of here, one south of here, and then, of course, the school that is at the intersection. So you're seeing failures in the morning, primarily in the morning peak, for turning movements at this location.
Are they going to wait till this is constructed before they do anything, Wayne County, or because they're seeing failures now, they could do something?
Yeah, the county will get it scheduled, and whenever their signal crew can get out there and make the change to the timing, which is what was recommended in the traffic impact study, they should be able to get that done.
There's a smart light there right now, isn't there, or no? It's not a, they replace it with one of the smart lights, which have more options. I don't know if that's an
There's
older-
no recommended changes to the traffic signal that exists at that location.
I thought it said that in the traffic study.
Just to change the timing of the traffic signal, which is what Wayne County's crews would do.
Further comment? Those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G4, consider approval of first reading of Code of Ordinance amendments to Chapter 106 entitled Stormwater Management, Articles 1 and 2, Section 106-32, 106-34, and 106-70.
Supervisor, I move to introduce and table for consideration the first reading of the Code of Ordinance amendments to Chapter 106 entitled Stormwater Management, Articles 1 and 2, Sections 106-32, 106-34, and 106-70, and then remove from the table for second reading on June 12th, 2018, with the publication date of June 21st, 2018, and effective date of July 1st, 2018.
Diane? Due to changes in stormwater management practices, changes to Canton Stormwater Management Ordinance are necessary. This chapter of the ordinance relates to the requirements and fees charged to developers for review and permitting of stormwater management systems. For some time now, Canton has not charged developers for street sweeping in new developments and has not offered that service. The amendment eliminates the fee and cleans up some of the older ordinance language. Are there any board questions or comments? Little cleanup of paperwork here, seeing no comments. Those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G5, which is consider approval of contract for maintenance masonry repairs in Heritage Park.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to award the contract for the Heritage Park Masonry Repair Project to Danjo Construction, LLC, at 5781 South Sheldon Road, Suite B, Canton, Michigan, 48188, in the amount of $31,250, with funds to be paid from the account number listed for capital outlay, building, and improvements.
Support.
A little background information. The Heritage Park Amphitheater and North Pavilion shelters are the original to the park and are now nearly 25 years old. There has been some significant deterioration to the structures due to weathering. We did budget $35,000 for this in 2018. An architect has been hired, a cost of $3,750 to develop the bid specifications leaving the remaining budget of $31,250. As you've seen here, we'd like to go ahead and get the work done. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye. Aye. Motion carries. Item G6, consider approval for the emergency replacement of sewage grinder station at Heritage Park.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve an emergency purchase order for the replacement of the Heritage Park grinder station to Kennedy Industries at 4925 Holtz Drive in Wixom, Michigan, 48393, in the amount of $21,009 to be paid from the account number listed for capital outlay buildings and improvements.
Support.
Thank you, Diane. Upon the season opening of Heritage Park ball field restrooms, staff determined that the restrooms stopped operating. An investigation revealed the existing 20-year-old fiberglass basin had cracked and separated, causing the sewage pump to fail. Since ball games and several major events are scheduled at the site, it is necessary that the sewage grinder station be replaced as soon as possible. We currently have a contract with Kennedy Industries for maintenance, repair, and replacement of the pump systems. Replacement of the station was negotiated with Kennedy Industries in the amount of $21,009. Based on the park usage and urgent nature of the repair, we are recommending approval of an emergency purchase order with Kennedy Industries. Are there any questions? Can you clean up the mess literally? Thank you. Okay, those in favor of the motion as presented, state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item G7. Consider approval of 5-year agreement with Wayne County Appraisals LLC, otherwise known as WCA Assessing, for the municipal assessing services for Canton Township.
Mr. Supervisor, I move to approve the proposed agreement with Wayne County Appraisal LLC and authorize the Township Supervisor to sign the agreement on behalf of Canton Township.
First, thank you, Summer. The current contract with Township's assessing contractor, Wayne County Appraisal LLC, otherwise known as WCA Assessing, expires June 30th, 2018. The board's being asked to consider entering into a new 5-year agreement. Are there any questions or comments? Go ahead, Emery.
Wendy, I couldn't open your file. You had said, you had sent a comparison. Could you just summarize that, please? It's not, my computer won't open it.
What we did was, I took some of the surrounding communities that we often compare ourselves to for budgeting purposes, for various reasons, either because we compare ourselves to them for the similar services or a growing community. So in taking a look at that and looking at their assessing budgets, compared them to their taxable values of the property within the communities, and also comparing them to the number of housing units. So it doesn't take into consideration the industrial, but the housing units themselves. We were on the low side as far as costs to taxable value and housing units. The only significant one lower was the city of Livonia. And I did talk to the city of Livonia. They have a very unique situation. They had their former assessor retired, wanted to work part-time, and they acknowledge the fact that when this individual decides to retire, they're likely going to be contracting it out, trying to find level 4 assessors that can actually service communities are very difficult. So they will likely be contracting it out as well at that point in time, and they recognize their costs are going to go up. So really the only significantly different one was Livonia out of the group that I looked at. We also looked at the Mitten website, which is a statewide bidding that some communities use. There was 2 recent ones out for bid. One was the city of Howell, and they had 1 response, which was an individual. And a city of Mount Clemens had 3 responses, 2 of which were individuals, and 1 was a company. And from what I understand, the company who quoted on that work mainly services rural communities. So there's not a lot of companies out there that are responding to bids that are even in this business. So coupled with the fact that, I think Treasurer Slavens can speak to the service level that this company has given us in the past. Our fees are very reasonable. Our budget's very reasonable compared to the other communities that we looked at. and putting staff through a bidding process, which is likely going to result in one company responding. That's why we went forth with it the way we did.
Please, Diane.
Quick comment, yeah, I want to thank Wendy for, it was a lot of legwork, so I appreciate you doing that. And, yeah, I just want to say that the treasurer's office works very closely with WCA, and we're very lucky that whenever residents have concerns or questions, they're always there to answer them, and customer service is number one, and so we really appreciate the teamwork that's happening. So thanks.
Good, we do have here in the background information about that we're going to get, the fees will be held flat for the first year. That was just good. And so then assessments will be waived on the first 100 new single homes. How many are we expecting each year? 99, right?
Yeah.
5.
Closer to 500 when we're done.
Then the first 100, first 10 commercial buildings each year. Okay. All right.
And last year, we didn't exceed 10.
Didn't exceed 10 commercials? How many, and we had 500 residential?
I'm not sure. I know we did
538
have
new
a-
houses.
We
year.
received a
110.
bill on top of the 100, I know that, but I'm not sure how many there were.
No further comments. Those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Very good, thank you. Now concludes, I believe, our formal agenda. Is there any additional public comment? Is there any additional public comment? None. Is there any board comments? Go ahead, Michael, please.
Yes, I will just briefly make a comment. There was an individual during public comments earlier talking about potholes and roads, and currently, yes, Wayne County is challenged to meet the needs of all 43 communities. However, this August, there will be a question on the ballot over whether or not Canton Township decides they want to participate in creating a local roads program. I did see, and I know that tomorrow there will be a list of potential 2019 projects that would be published if the millage were to pass. And one of the legs of the roads, portion of Lilly that was mentioned tonight, would be on the schedule for having improvements done in 2019. So that's something that residents and voters can think about over the next couple of months while they make up their mind about the validity of that question in August.
We'll be having informational sessions also.
That's correct.
3 of them are scheduled. First one, I believe, is June 13th.
Yep, June 13th.
Then we have a coffee hour before that, too, I think.
Plenty of opportunities to answer questions for the residents. This weekend's going to be a busy weekend. We've got the Canton Cup, so there'll be thousands of soccer players and families
I'll be there.
coming into Canton. So that'll be all weekend long. Is there additional comments? Staff? Seeing none, call for a motion to dismiss.
So moved.
Support.
Happy Ramadan to the community members out there. A lot of us are celebrating. Yeah.
And Memorial Day.
Memorial Day, happy Memorial Day, I'm sorry, yes. Are we having Memorial Day, anything?
Um,
What time is it? Are we having a,
Yeah, will be events for Memorial Day, typically 1 o'clock on Monday from memory, but please check your local papers. Hopefully the Journal and the Observer will have the programs published, or check online with the cantonmi.org. So yes, there are definitely Memorial Day events in the community as well.
The point of order, there is a motion on the floor that is yet to be voted on.
It has been called and it has been seconded. Those in favor of the motion as presented, please state aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Thank you. We are now closed. Have a good night.